The mining station Eternal Gratitude floated in the darkness of space like a metal tomb. It was old and ugly, built from gray steel and broken dreams. Inside its cold walls, 10,000 humans lived and worked and died. They were not workers. They were not guests. They were slaves. Woke up at the same time he woke up every day. A loud horn screamed through the sleeping quarters at 500 hours. The sound was designed to hurt. The believed that pain made humans work harder. They were wrong about many things, but they never stopped to learn. He was 34 years old, but he looked older. His hands were rough from years of holding tools. His back was bent from crawling through tunnels that were too small for bodies but perfect for human ones. That was why they kept humans. They were small. They were clever with machines, and there were so many of them that losing a few did not matter. Remembered Earth. He was 12 years old when they came. Their ships had filled the sky like a second night. The war lasted 6 months. Humanity fought with everything it had. Missiles, bombs, soldiers who knew they would die but fought anyway. None of it mattered. The technology was too advanced. Their shields stopped every weapon. Their soldiers wore armor that bullets could not pierce. After the war, the sorting began. The divided humans into categories. Strong ones went to mining colonies. Smart ones went to factories. Pretty ones went to serve in homes. Old ones and sick ones were sent nowhere at all. They simply disappeared. Had been an engineer before the conquest. He designed bridges and buildings. Now he fixed broken pipes in a space station that smelled like oil and despair. They gave him a number instead of a name. He was 7741E. The E stood for engineer. The number meant nothing at all. He walked to the food hall with the other slaves. They moved in silence. Speaking was allowed, but most people had nothing to say. Hope had died long ago in this place. Only routine remained. The food was gray paste that tasted like nothing. It had all the nutrients a human body needed to keep working. It had none of the things a human soul needed to keep living. Ate it without thinking. He had stopped tasting food years ago. Across the table sat. She was 28 years old with tired eyes and gentle hands. She worked as a medic, fixing broken humans so they could break again. They did not care about human health, but they cared about losing workers. Dead slaves could not dig ore from asteroids, so they allowed one medic for every 1,000 humans. Caught's eye and nodded slightly. It was a small movement that no would notice, but noticed. Something was happening, something secret. After breakfast, he went to work in Tunnel 7. The tunnel was deep in the station's belly, far from eyes. Only humans worked there because the ceiling was too low for the tall alien bodies. Like Tunnel 7, it was the only place where he could think without being watched. Was already there, pretending to clean the walls. He was nearly 60 years old with white hair and a crooked back. The thought he was useless for real work, so they made him a cleaner. They did not know that before the conquest had been a professor. He taught military history at a university in. He knew every war humanity had ever fought, every victory, every defeat, every lesson. Now he taught those lessons in secret, in whispers, in stolen moments when the overseers were not looking. 3 more died last night, said quietly. He did not stop cleaning. His eyes did not meet. They had learned to talk without looking at each other. Tunnel collapse in Section 9. They did not even stop the machines. Felt something twist in his chest. It was not sadness. He had felt too much sadness over the years. This feeling was harder, colder. It was anger that had frozen into something like stone. Did they recover the bodies? He asked. Shook his head. Commandant ordered them ejected into space. He said dead slaves were waste. Waste belongs in the void. Commandant knew the name well. Every human on Eternal Gratitude knew it. Was the station's overseer of the ruling caste. He was tall even for his kind, with gray skin and 4 arms that he used to gesture dramatically when he spoke. He wore golden robes and rings on every finger. He had never worked a day in his life. 2 humans were tools, less than tools. A hammer was treated with more care than a human slave. If a hammer broke, you fixed it. If a human broke, you threw them away and got another one. Had seen kill a man once. A young worker had stumbled and spilled ore on the floor, had pulled out a small weapon and shot him in the head without a word. Then he had ordered another human to clean up the mess, the body and the ore together. That night had made a decision. He did not know how, he did not know when, but someday, somehow, he would make the pay for what they had done. In the evening, went to the lower decks. This was where the broken machines were sent to rust. The never came here. They thought it was beneath them. That made it the safest place on the station. Was waiting for him. She was only 19 years old, born on the station after the conquest. She had never seen Earth. She had never felt grass under her feet or wind on her face. But she dreamed about them. She dreamed about a home she had never known. "Sent me," said. Her voice was soft but steady. She was young, but she was not weak. The station had made her strong in ways they could not see. She found something. You need to come. They walked through narrow corridors that smelled like rust and old oil. Finally, they reached a small room hidden behind a wall of broken pipes. Was inside, kneeling over a collection of metal parts. "I built this 3 years ago," said. She held up a small device made from scrap metal and stolen wires. "It is a radio. I have been listening to signals from other stations." Stared at her. A radio. This was dangerous. If they found it, they would kill everyone who knew about it. "Why are you showing me this now?" he asked. His eyes met his. In them he saw something he had not seen in years, something that looked like hope. "Because I finally heard something worth sharing," she said. "There are others like us, on other stations, other colonies. They are tired of being slaves. They are starting to organize." She leaned closer and spoke a single word. "Ember." Did not understand at first, but then explained. Ember was a network, a secret group of humans across dozens of stations who were planning something impossible. They were planning to fight back. "We cannot win," said. The words came automatically. He had said them to himself so many times. "They have ships, they have weapons, they have everything." Appeared in the doorway. His old face was hard with determination. "They have everything except one thing," the old professor said. "They have never seen what humans become when we are truly desperate. They think we are sheep. They have forgotten that sheep can become wolves." Looked around the small room, at with her forbidden radio, at who dreamed of a world she had never seen, at who remembered a history of human warfare stretching back 10,000 years. Something changed in his heart. The frozen anger began to thaw. In its place, something new was growing, something dangerous. For the first time in 22 years, began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the slaves could become something else. And that maybe, they would learn to regret the day they had called humanity weak. 3 weeks after showed the radio, everything changed. It started with a sound. A terrible crash that shook the entire station like an earthquake. Was working in Tunnel 7 when he felt the floor shake beneath his feet. The lights flickered. Alarms began to scream. "What was that?" asked. She was working beside him, sorting rocks by size. Did not answer. He was already moving toward the main corridor, where other humans were running in confusion. The guards were shouting orders in their harsh language. Their voices were high and strange, like birds screaming. Then the news spread through the crowd like fire. A patrol ship had crashed into the docking bay. Engine failure. The ship had come in too fast and hit the landing platform with enough force to kill everyone on board. 5 crew members, all dead. Felt his heart beat faster. Dead meant chaos, and chaos meant opportunity. He found in the waste processing sector. The old man was pretending to sweep the floor, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "Did you hear?" whispered. "Everyone heard," replied. "The whole station is talking about it." "Not about the crash," leaned closer. "About what was on the ship, Weapons, plasma rifles, energy blades. The guards are fighting over who gets to search the wreck first. They are not watching us. Understood immediately. This was their chance, maybe their only chance. He gathered and, together, the four of them made their way to the docking bay through tunnels that only humans used. The main corridors were filled with soldiers running back and forth, but the small passages beneath the floor were empty. They were too big to fit inside them. They had never imagined that these tunnels could be used against them. When they reached the wreck, the docking bay was a mess of smoke and twisted metal. The patrol ship had broken apart on impact. Pieces of it were scattered across the floor like bones. In the center of the destruction lay the bodies of the crew, gray and still. Felt nothing when he looked at them. Once, long ago, he might have felt pity for the dead. Now he only felt determination. There, pointed, near the back of the wreck, a storage container had split open. Inside, they could see the gleam of weapons. Plasma rifles designed for hands, energy blades that could cut through steel. "How do we carry them?" asked. "The guards will search us when they see us leaving." Smiled. It was a thin, hard smile. "We do not leave through the main doors. We take them through the tunnels. We hide them where no ever goes." "The waste sector," said. "Exactly." They worked quickly and quietly, grabbed 2 plasma rifles, took 3 energy blades, found a box of power cells that would keep the weapons working, stood watch at the entrance to the tunnel, ready to warn them if anyone came. No one came. They were too busy arguing with each other. Their officers screamed at their soldiers. Their soldiers screamed back. They were so concerned with blame that they forgot to guard the wreck. This was the weakness that had always suspected. They looked powerful. Their ships were mighty. Their technology was advanced. But they were not soldiers. They had not fought a real war in thousands of years. They conquered weak species and ruled through fear. When something unexpected happened, they fell apart. By the time the guards finally organized a proper search, the weapons were gone. Hidden deep in the waste processing sector, behind walls of garbage and forgotten machines. No one would ever look there. The smell alone would keep them away. That night, the four of them met in their secret room. They sat in a circle around the stolen weapons, looking at them in silence. "We have a choice," said finally. "We can give these to tell them we found them. Maybe they will give us extra food. Maybe they will leave us alone for a while." Or asked. "Or we keep them, we hide them, and we begin planning something that might get us all killed." Silence filled the room. The weight of the choice pressed down on them like a physical thing. Spoke first. His old voice was steady. "Before the came, I spent my whole life studying war. I know every battle humans ever fought, from the first stone thrown in anger to the last nuclear bomb dropped in the Pacific War. Do you know what I learned from all that study?" No one answered. "Humans are not meant to be slaves," said. "Our history is written in blood. We killed each other for land, for resources, for ideas. We invented new ways to kill each other every generation. We built weapons that could destroy cities. We trained soldiers who could fight in any condition." He looked at the plasma rifles on the floor. "They think we are weak because we surrendered, but we did not surrender because we were weak. We surrendered because their technology was too far ahead of ours. Their ships, their shields, their weapons. We could not match them, so we did what humans always do when we face a stronger enemy. We waited. We watched. We learned." "And now?" asked. Her young voice trembled slightly, but not with fear, with excitement. "Now we have their weapons," said, "and they have forgotten what we are." Pulled out her radio. "The Ember Network has been waiting for something like this. Other stations have been gathering supplies, tools, information, but they needed weapons to make the plan work. If we can share what we have found." "We would be starting a war," said. "We would be finishing one," corrected him. "The war never ended, we just stopped fighting. There is a difference." Looked at each of them, who had kept hope alive with a radio made from garbage, who dreamed of a world she had never seen, who had spent decades waiting for this moment. And himself, a man with a number instead of a name, a tool that the had used until he was nearly broken. "How do we start?" asked. The plan came together over the following weeks, contacted other stations through her radio. The signals were weak and coded, but the messages got through. The humans on eternal gratitude had weapons. They were ready to share. Began teaching again. Not just history now, but tactics. How to fight in corridors. How to disable armor. Where to hit a body to kill them quickly. He had studied their anatomy from medical records that had stolen from the sick bay. "They have 4 arms," explained to a small group in the darkness of the lower decks. "But their hearts are in the same place as ours. One good shot to the center of the chest will stop them. Their eyes are sensitive to bright light. Flash them before you attack. Their legs are long but thin. Break a leg and they cannot run." Practiced with an energy blade until she could activate it in less than a second. Her movements were quick and silent. She was young and angry and desperate. That made her dangerous. Studied the station systems. He was an engineer. He understood how the machines worked, the life support, the power grid, the communication arrays. If the time came for an uprising, he would know exactly which wires to cut. More humans joined them. Word spread through the slave quarters in whispers. Not everyone was ready to fight. Some were too afraid. Some had given up hope long ago, but enough were willing. Enough were angry. Enough remembered what it felt like to be free. The Ember network grew. On 17 stations in the system, humans began preparing, stealing supplies, hiding weapons, training in secret. They saw nothing. They suspected nothing. To them, humans were still just slaves, stupid, broken, harmless. Commandant walked through the corridors of eternal gratitude with his usual pride. His golden robe swept behind him. His 4 hands adjusted the rings on his fingers. He looked at the human workers scurrying past him and felt satisfaction. "Production is up this month," his assistant reported. "The slaves are working harder than before." "Of course they are," said. "They know their place. They know what happens to those who fail." He did not notice the way some of the humans looked at him as he passed. He did not see the hatred in their eyes. He did not understand that when slaves start working harder, it sometimes means they are preparing for something. That night received a message from the network. It came in broken pieces, but the meaning was clear. The flagship Unbreakable Dominion was coming to the system. It was the largest warship in the sector. 12,000 crew members. 300 of them were human slaves who maintained the engine core. 300 humans who had already joined the Ember. Read the message and felt something stir in his chest. It was hope. Dangerous, impossible hope. "If we can take that ship," he said slowly, "we can take the system." "Then we take the ship," said simply. The spark had caught. The fire was beginning to spread, and they had no idea that they were about to burn. 6 months passed like a slow dream. On the surface, nothing changed. Humans woke at 500 hours when the horn screamed. They ate gray paste in the food hall. They worked in the tunnels until their bodies ached. They slept on thin beds in crowded rooms. They watched them and saw nothing unusual. But beneath the surface, everything was different. Had lost count of how many secret meetings he had attended. The lower decks of eternal gratitude had become a training ground. Every night, after the guards went to their quarters, groups of humans gathered in the darkness. They practiced fighting. They learned how to use stolen weapons. They memorized every corridor and doorway on the station. Had expanded her radio network. She now had contact with 17 stations across the system. Each station had its own cell of the Ember. Each cell was preparing for the same day. The day when the slaves would stop being slaves. Had trained dozens of fighters. His old body could not move like it once did, but his mind was sharp as a blade. He taught them everything he knew about war. How to plan an ambush. How to fight in tight spaces. how to kill quickly and quietly. They have never faced an enemy like us, he told them. They conquered species that were gentle, species that did not understand violence. We are not like those species. We invented violence. We perfected it. They have better technology, but we have 10,000 years of practice at killing. Had become one of the best fighters in the group. She practiced every day until her movements were perfect. The energy blade felt like an extension of her arm. She could activate it and cut through a target before anyone knew what was happening. She never smiled anymore. Her young face had become hard and serious. She had a list in her head, every who had ever hurt her, every overseer who had called her an animal, every guard who had laughed while humans suffered. She was going to find them all when the time came. The plan was simple in its design, but complicated in its execution. First, all 17 stations would rise at the same moment. The attacks would happen at 300 hours when most guards were sleeping. Humans would seize control of critical systems, life support, communications, docking bays. They would trap thee in their quarters and cut them off from help. Second, the humans on the unbreakable Dominion would take the ship from the inside. 300 workers in the engine core would disable the main systems while others attacked the bridge. The crew was 12,000 strong, but most of them were not soldiers. They were engineers and scientists and bureaucrats. They had never held a weapon in their lives. Third, once the stations and the warship were under human control, they would destroy the sector command station. This was where the regional governor lived. Without him, the military in this part of space would lose all coordination. Their ships would have no orders. Their soldiers would have no leadership. Fourth, they would broadcast a message to every human in space. A single word that meant freedom was possible. A signal for every slave on every planet to rise up. Rise. The plan was dangerous. The plan was probably impossible, but it was the only plan they had. Spent weeks studying the station's systems. He mapped every power line and communication cable. He found the exact points where cutting a wire would shut down the security network. He identified the rooms where the guards stored their weapons. He learned the patrol schedules until he could predict where every guard would be at any moment. One night, he shared his findings with the group. There are 47 guards on this station, he said. 20 of them work the night shift. They patrol in pairs along fixed routes. At 300 hours, there are exactly 6 minutes when the main corridor is empty. That is our window. 6 minutes is not much time, said. It is enough. If we move fast and hit hard, we can take the command center before they know what is happening. Once we have that, we control the whole station. Nodded slowly. What about Commandant? He sleeps in the command center, said. He will be our first target. Something dark passed across his face. He had waited 22 years for a chance to face. He had watched the Commandant kill innocent people. He had bowed and said nothing because there was no other choice. Now there was a choice, and he intended to make it count. The days continued to pass. Training intensified. More weapons were distributed. Humans who had never fought before learned to hold a rifle and pull a trigger. Fear was everywhere, but so was determination. They knew the odds were against them. They knew many of them would die. But they also knew that living as slaves was worse than dying as fighters. Commandant noticed something strange one morning. He was walking through the mining sector when he saw a group of humans working. They were digging ore from the walls, same as always. Their movements were the same. Their faces showed the same weariness. But something was different. Could not explain it. There was something in their eyes, something that had not been there before. When they looked at him, they did not look away fast enough. When they bowed, the motion seemed slower, less afraid. He stopped in front of one of them, a young female with short black hair. She looked up at him without the proper fear. You said, "What is your number?" 8839M, the girl said. Her voice was flat. Maintenance worker. Look at me when I speak to you. She looked at him, and there it was again, that strange light in her eyes. It was not hatred exactly. It was something colder, something patient. Felt uncomfortable. He was a lord. He was not supposed to feel uncomfortable around slaves. He raised his hand to strike her, then stopped. He did not know why he stopped. Something told him that hitting her would be a mistake. "Return to work," he ordered. He walked away quickly. Behind him, the girl smiled. It was a small smile that no one else could see. That night called his security chief. "Increase patrols," he ordered. "I want guards in every section at all times." "Is there a problem, Commandant?" Hesitated. What could he say? That the slaves were looking at him wrong, that he felt something was changing. It sounded foolish even in his own head. "Just do it," he said finally. "Something feels wrong." But the increased patrols found nothing. The humans worked as they always worked. They slept as they always slept. There was no evidence of conspiracy, no hidden weapons discovered, no secret meetings interrupted. The security chief reported that everything was normal. Wanted to believe it, he tried to believe it. He told himself that he was imagining things. Humans were not capable of organizing a revolt. They were too stupid, too broken, too afraid. He was wrong. The date was set. Every cell in the Ember network knew the time. 3 days from now. 300 hours. 17 stations would rise together. The unbreakable dominion would be taken. They would learn what a terrible mistake they had made when they decided to enslave humanity. Gathered his group for one final meeting. "When this begins, there is no going back," he said. "If we fail, we die. If we succeed, we become something new. Either way, we stop being slaves. Does anyone want to leave?" No one moved. "I was born on this station," said. "I never saw Earth. I never felt real sunlight. They took everything from me before I even had a chance to have it. I would rather die fighting than live one more day as their property." Nodded. "I kept that radio hidden for 3 years. Every day I listened for a sign that things could change. Now I have that sign. I will not waste it." Smiled his thin smile. "I am old. I have lived long enough to see my world conquered and my people enslaved. I do not want to die in chains. If these are my last days, I will spend them teaching the what humanity truly is." Looked at each of them, his family, not by blood but by something stronger, by hope, by anger, by the shared dream of freedom. 3 days, he said. In 3 days, everything changes. Somewhere in the depths of space, the unbreakable dominion moved toward the system. Its human workers crawled through its engine core, waiting, listening, preparing. The fire was spreading, and soon the wood burn. Moved through the darkness like a ghost. His heart beat fast in his chest, but his hands were steady. He held a mining pick in his grip. It was not the best weapon, but it was familiar. He had used it every day for 20 years. He knew exactly how much force it needed to break through rock. Tonight, he would learn how much force it needed to break through a skull. The corridor ahead was empty, just as he had predicted. The guard patrol had passed 2 minutes ago. They would not return for another 4 minutes. That was enough time. Behind him moved silently. Her energy blade was in her hand but not activated. The glow would give them away. Followed close behind, carrying a bag of tools she would use to hack the communication systems. Was at the rear, his old legs moving as fast as they could. They were not alone. Across the station, dozens of other groups were moving through the shadows. Each group had a target: security rooms, weapons storage, air recycling systems. The attack would hit everywhere at once. Reached the command center door. It was locked with a security code that no human was supposed to know, but had spent months stealing access codes from the medical database. She had pieces of information from all across the station, put together like a puzzle. She typed the code. The door slid open. Inside, 2 guards sat at their stations. They looked up in confusion. Humans were not supposed to be here. Humans were supposed to be in their quarters sleeping. Did not give them time to understand. He charged forward and swung the mining pick with all his strength. It hit the first guard in the throat. The made a wet choking sound and fell from his chair. Was already moving. Her energy blade activated with a low hum. The blue light cut through the darkness like a star. She slashed at the second guard before he could reach for his weapon. The blade went through his chest without resistance. It was over in 3 seconds. Stood over the bodies, breathing hard. His hands were covered in gray blood. It was warm on his skin. He should have felt something. Horror maybe, or guilt. But he felt nothing except cold satisfaction. The door to Commandant's private quarters was on the other side of the command center. Walked toward it. "Wait," said. "We need to disable the alarm system first, if he calls for help." "He will not have time to call for help," said. He kicked the door open. Was awake. The Commandant stood in the middle of his luxurious room, wearing his golden sleeping robes. His 4 hands clutched a small weapon pointed at the door. His eyes were wide with fear. "What is this?" demanded. His voice was high and shaky. "What are you doing here?" Stepped into the room, behind him, and entered. They spread out, surrounding the Commandant. "We are taking back what you stole," said. Laughed. It was a nervous laugh, not a confident one. "You cannot win. Do you know who I am? I am a lord. My family has ruled for 10,000 years. You are nothing. You are animals. You are slaves." "We were slaves," corrected. "Now we are something else." Fired his weapon. The energy bolt shot towards chest, but was faster. She moved between them and deflected the bolt with her blade. The reflected energy hit the wall, leaving a black burn mark. His eyes went wide. He had never seen a human move like that. He had never imagined it was possible. Spoke, his old voice was calm and steady. "You conquered us because you had better ships, better weapons, better technology. We could not match you in the sky, so we surrendered and waited." "Waited for what?" whispered. "For a chance," said. "For a moment when you forgot what we are, and now that moment has come." Moved forward. He grabbed by one of his 4 arms and twisted it until the weapon fell from his grip. The Commandant screamed in pain. It was a strange sound. Had never heard a scream before. "You killed my friends," said. "You killed people I loved. You threw their bodies into space like garbage. Do you even remember their names?" "They were just slaves," gasped. "They were nothing, they were." Hit him. The mining pick came down on the Commandant's head with all the force of 22 years of anger. Collapsed to the floor and did not move again. There was silence in the room, then spoke. "It is done, what now?" "Drop the bloody pick. Now we take the station." Across eternal gratitude, the uprising was spreading. Groups of humans attacked guard posts and security stations. The caught by surprise fought back in disorganized panic. They had numbers and weapons, but they had no plan. They had never imagined this could happen. Reached the communication center and began hacking into the main systems. Within minutes, she had taken control of the station's internal signals. She opened a channel to every speaker on the station. "To all humans on eternal gratitude," she said. Her voice was steady despite everything happening around her. "The uprising has begun. We have taken the command center. We have killed Commandant. They are confused and afraid. If you can fight, fight now. If you cannot fight, hide and wait. By morning, this station will be ours." Her words echoed through every corridor. Humans who had been hiding heard them and found their courage. They picked up tools and pipes and anything that could be used as a weapon. They attacked guards who were already overwhelmed. The guards tried to call for help, but no one answered. The other stations in the system were busy with their own uprisings. The communication channels were filled with human voices, not commands. And far away, in the darkness of space, the unbreakable dominion went silent. The 300 humans in the engine core had struck at the same moment as the stations. They disabled the main power systems, trapping most of the crew in their quarters. Then they moved through the ship's corridors, taking control section by section. The captain tried to restore order. He ordered his soldiers to the engine core, but the humans had welded the doors shut. The soldiers could not get through. A human named led the attack on the bridge. He was 40 years old, a mechanic who had spent 15 years maintaining the ship's weapon systems. He knew exactly where every wire connected. He knew how to turn those weapons against their owners. "This is human insurgent to all crew," he broadcast over the ship's systems. "Your engine is under our control. Your weapons are under our control. Surrender now and you will be treated fairly. Resist and you will die." The captain refused to surrender. He ordered his officers to break through the engine core doors by force, but while his soldiers were distracted, led a team to the bridge through the maintenance tunnels. The same tunnels they had never bothered to guard because they thought they were too small to matter. The fight for the bridge lasted 6 minutes. When it was over, the captain and his senior officers were dead. The unbreakable dominion belonged to humanity. Back on Eternal Gratitude, the last guards made their stand in the docking bay. There were 12 of them, well-armed and desperate. They had seen what happened to their comrades. They knew they would receive no mercy. Led the final assault. He had a proper weapon now, a plasma rifle taken from a dead guard. Beside him were 50 humans, armed with everything from stolen guns to sharpened metal bars. "You will all die for this," the commander screamed. "The Empire will send a fleet. They will burn your planet. They will kill every last one of you." "Maybe," said, "but you will not be alive to see it." The humans attacked. The fight was brutal and bloody. Plasma bolts burned through human flesh. But for every human that fell, 3 more took their place. They had waited 100 years for this moment. They were not going to stop now. When the last guard fell, the station belonged to humanity. Broadcast on all frequencies. Her signal went out to every human in the system, every slave who was waiting, every prisoner who was watching. To every human who can hear this, the chains are broken. We are not asking for freedom. We are taking it. If you can fight, fight. If you cannot fight, run. But know this. Tonight, they'll learn what humanity becomes when it has nothing left to lose. Station after station reported victory. The sector command station fell 3 hours later when the unbreakable Dominion arrived and destroyed its defenses with a single barrage. Other races in the sector watched in stunned silence. The creatures who had been conquered by the long before humans ever existed. They had believed they were invincible. Now they saw something impossible happening. The slaves were winning. Stood in the command center of Eternal Gratitude as the sun rose over a new day. His clothes were stained with blood. His body ached from fighting, but he was not tired. He was free. Beside him, looked out the window at the stars. "I never thought I would see this," she said quietly. "See what?" "The stars from the right side of a window." She turned to him. "Before I always saw them from the tunnels, from below. Now I am looking down at them." Understood. For the first time in her life, she was not a slave looking up at her masters. She was a free human looking out at a galaxy that was suddenly full of possibilities. The Night of Ashes was over, but the war for humanity had just begun. 1 year later, the galaxy looked very different. Stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Remembrance. It was a battleship they had captured in the 4th month of the war. He had renamed it in honor of everyone who had died in slavery, every human who had worked until their body gave out, every child who had never seen the sky, every mother who had watched her family torn apart. He remembered them all, and he would make sure they remembered them too. The fleet behind him numbered 17 warships now. Some they had captured, some they had built in the factories they had taken over. Humans learned quickly. They always had. The same minds that had invented nuclear weapons and space travel on Earth now turned technology against its creators. "Sir," his communications officer said. She was a young woman born on a mining station like. We are receiving a transmission from the High Council. They want to negotiate. Smiled, it was not a warm smile. Put them through. The flickered, a face appeared. She was old for her kind, with gray skin that had faded almost to white. Golden ornaments hung from her 4 ears. She was a member of the ruling caste, perhaps one of the last. I am Chancellor of the High Council, she said. Her voice was stiff with pride, but there was fear underneath. I wish to discuss terms of peace. Peace, repeated. That is an interesting word coming from you. We are prepared to make concessions, significant concessions. We will grant humanity 3 systems of their own, self-governance under oversight, a formal apology for historical difficulties. Historical difficulties. His voice was cold. Is that what you call 100 years of slavery? Is that what you call working us to death in your minds, throwing our bodies into space like garbage, calling us animals? Shifted uncomfortably. We understand there are grievances. We are willing to address them. You are willing to address them because you are losing, said. 47 systems have fallen in the past year. Your military is shattered. Your subject races are rising against you. The freed themselves last month. They are in open revolt. Your empire is dying, Chancellor, and you want to negotiate because you are afraid. We still have resources. We still have strength. This war could continue for generations if. Then it will continue for generations. Silence on the screen stared at him with something like disbelief. You would reject our offer, 3 systems and self-governance. This is more than any species has ever received from us. Leaned forward. Let me explain something to you, Chancellor. You took our world, you took our families. You worked us until we died in your tunnels and your factories and your ships. You called us animals. You called us tools. You called us slaves. You were wrong. He stood straight. Behind him, his crew watched in proud silence. We are humanity. We do not negotiate with slavers. We do not accept oversight from tyrants. And we do not forget. You have 1 year to evacuate every system you stole from us and every species you still hold in chains. After that, we come for you, not to conquer, not to enslave, but to ensure that no species ever suffers under rule again. His face twisted with anger. You would destroy us. After everything we built, we are a 12,000-year civilization. And we are a species that has been fighting wars since before you learned to use fire, said. You thought you could tame us. You thought you could break us. You called us slaves. Look upon your ashes and remember what we truly are. He cut the transmission. On Earth, 3 billion humans watched the broadcast, had made sure the signal reached the. She stood now in a communications center on what had once been a military base, watching the cheers erupt across every human settlement on the planet. Earth had never been fully. They claimed they had conquered it, but in truth, they had only occupied the cities. In the mountains and forests and underground shelters, humans had been hiding, waiting, building. When the uprising began, Earth rose with it. The garrison was overwhelmed within weeks. Now the blue planet was free again, and its people were ready to fight. Thought about her little radio, the one she had built from scrap parts and hidden for 3 years. That tiny signal had started all of this, a spark that became a fire that became a revolution. She allowed herself a small smile. Then she went back to work. There were still systems to liberate, still slaves to free, still to defeat. Did not live to see the victory. He died in the first uprising, an energy blade through his chest. He was defending a group of children who had hidden in the lower decks. He killed 3 guards before he fell. But his teachings lived on. Every human soldier knew the history now. Every child was told the story of the old professor who had kept their warrior spirit alive in secret. Schools on liberated planets were named after him. Statues were built in his honor. Before he died, had said one thing that would never forget. Do not become what they were. We fight to end slavery, not to create new slaves. When you win, and you will win, remember that freedom must belong to everyone, even when they surrender. Otherwise, we are no better than them. Carried those words with him. When civilians surrendered, he let them live. When enemy soldiers threw down their weapons, he took them prisoner instead of killing them. He fought with fury but ruled with wisdom. Not everyone agreed with this approach. Some humans wanted revenge. They wanted to make the suffer the way humanity had suffered, but refused. "We are fighting for freedom," he told his commanders, "not for vengeance. If we become monsters to defeat monsters, we have already lost." Stood on Earth for the first time on a spring morning 1 year and 3 months after the uprising began. She was 20 years old now. She led a battalion of soldiers who had liberated 6 systems. The grass was soft beneath her feet. The wind touched her face. The sun warmed her skin in a way no artificial light ever had. She cried. For the first time since the uprising began, she allowed herself to cry. A child approached her, a little girl maybe 7 years old. She had been born free on a liberated station. She had never been a slave. "Are you okay?" the child asked. Knelt down to meet her eyes. "I am better than okay, I am home." "Is this where you were born?" "No, I was born on a space station far from here. I never saw Earth until today." "Then how can it be home?" Looked around at the green hills and the blue sky, and the clouds that moved like slow dreams. "Because this is where my people come from. Because humans walked on this ground for 100,000 years before they even knew we existed. Because somewhere in my blood and my bones, this place is part of me. Even though I never saw it before, I have always known it." The child nodded as if she understood. Maybe she did. 100 years later, there were a footnote in galactic history. There was a nature preserve, populated by the descendants of those who had surrendered. They lived simple lives now, farming and crafting and raising their children in peace. They were treated well. Humanity, as it hoped, was not cruel, only thorough. The Galactic Coalition of Free Peoples included 47 species, many of them former slaves. Humanity did not lead it. They had been offered leadership many times and refused every time. "We do not want to rule anyone," the human representative said at the founding ceremony. "We just wanted to make sure no one rules us, and no one rules anyone else, ever again." On a quiet moon in the Terran system, there was a memorial. It stretched for kilometers, a wall of stone carved with names. 47 million names. Every human who had died in slavery. Every person who had been worked to death, or killed by overseers, or thrown into space like garbage. At the base of the memorial there was an inscription. Had written it himself before he died of old age at 93. "They called us slaves, we called ourselves free, and we made it true." Visitors came from all across the galaxy to read those words. Species who had never heard of humanity before the war learned about the small mammals who had refused to stay broken. They learned about the uprising that had started in darkness and ended in light. Some of them wondered what would have happened if they had treated humans differently, if they had been kind instead of cruel, if they had offered partnership instead of chains. But they had not been kind. They had looked at humanity and seen only tools. They had never imagined that the tools could become warriors, that the slaves could become conquerors, that the animals they mocked could burn their armies to ash. They learned the truth too late. The galaxy was at peace now, but in every human heart there was still a spark, a memory of what they had been and what they had become, a reminder that freedom is never given, it is only taken. And if anyone ever tried to take it away again, humanity would remember. They would remember the tunnels and the gray paste and the numbers instead of names. They would remember the bodies thrown into space and the children born into chains. They would remember the night of ashes and the fire that spread across the stars. And they would rise again. Not because they loved war, but because they loved freedom more. That was the lesson they had failed to learn. That was the truth that defined humanity. They were not slaves. They had never been slaves. They had only been waiting for the chance to prove it. And prove it they did.